So I always wanted to make this video, not just because it's funny, but it's actually one of the most popular topics in the agenda scene in One Piece. So popular to the point where it caught the attention of a very famous YouTuber that goes by the name of Moist Critical or Penguin Zero. Let's watch this clip together and see what he has to say.
This arc also opened my third eye to a painful revelation that I may not know what the One Piece is yet, but I do know what the one truth is. That Mihawk is a fraud.
So the one truth is that Mihawk is a fraud. You know what's funny about this guy saying this? Apparently, I'm not too sure about this, but everybody's saying Zoro is his favorite character, so why are you saying this? A lot of people that say this don't realize it damages Zoro, but hey man, agenda, let's just say that.
Mihawk clashed briefly with Vista in the Marineford arc.
He said they clashed briefly, so I'm sure you can't be calling someone a fraud based on a brief clash, right?
And it became abundantly clear that this man might just not be the world's greatest swordsman.
Really, man? He's not the world's strongest swordsman? Then who the f is?
Maybe he's like King from One Punch Man, where everyone just perceives him as this unbeatable, indomitable force of nature, but in reality, he's just not.
He called him King from One Punch Man. And if you guys don't know who that guy is, he's perceived as one of the strongest heroes based on lies and propaganda. But once again though, Zoro is his favorite character.
We haven't seen Mihawk do a single fucking thing since he clashed with Zoro at the Baratie like 20 years ago. Like, it is so sad. Like, it is actually so sad. He just gets by on aura and aura alone.
Now that part, he's not lying. As much as I defend Mihawk, I would never deny the fact that Oda didn't do a good job at portraying his strength on screen, especially in Marineford. And it's quite sad, and it leads people to come to this conclusion that Mihawk's just a fraud. Which I keep having to remind you guys, and someone has to remind Moist Critical about this, that it's fun to trash Mihawk, and you have all this evidence to back it up because he looks so stupid in Marineford. But at the end of the day, don't lose sight of what this man represents. He represents Zoro's dream and is the gateway to Zoro achieving it. So when it's actually time to see Mihawk's full strength on screen, when it actually matters, none of these fraudulent conclusions that we dissect in Marineford is going to matter. But that leads me into the actual video. But it's come to my attention that I think Mihawk isn't as badly as portrayed as I once remembered, because I've seen a lot of people talking about this on Twitter. I haven't really skimmed through the performance of Mihawk beyond the anime, and the anime has its own way of doing things. So let's do a reread of Marineford together and let's dissect if this guy was really fraudulent or not. Like and subscribe to the channel, guys. I will post a follow-up video to this talking about another juicy topic in Marineford, so make sure to hit that sub button. Yes, you. So the first panel of Mihawk we see in Marineford, we see him aura farming with the other warlords on some casual shit, and he just looks pretty cool, nothing to really talk about. The next appearance of Mihawk is the most controversial. As the Whitebeard pirates enter Marineford, Mihawk immediately decides to measure the distance between him and Whitebeard, or should I say us and that man. That man referring to Whitebeard, of course, and us, as I interpret, is him talking about the main fighters on the Marine side, because Whitebeard at this current point was still viewed as the world's strongest man, and he's the pinnacle of strength that everyone wants to naturally compare themselves to. That's the whole reason Mihawk even decided to test Whitebeard and if his strength still lived up to his reputation. Everyone believed Whitebeard was still the strongest man at his current age with his current condition, with Sengoku even believing he was able to destroy the world. Mihawk is said to be able to gauge someone's strength just by looking at them. This also just makes sense with the whole portrayal surrounding his character and his hawk eyes. So Mihawk, who had the supposed world's strongest man in front of him, wanted to see if it was really true. He really still was the world's strongest man. You could take this as if this was a prime Whitebeard, he wouldn't test him and he would automatically just assume inferiority, which is a fair assumption. Some people have many other interpretations, but the only one that can make Mihawk look so-called fraudulent is some people implying that he thinks an old Whitebeard is stronger. No, he thinks a prime Whitebeard is, but he's testing to see if he really is prime Whitebeard. Mihawk thinking prime Whitebeard is stronger than him isn't something I would say that makes him a fraud, because prime Whitebeard is arguably the strongest old gen we've seen. And there's also other interpretations to the scene that also make sense, so I wouldn't say this necessarily makes him fraudulent. Jozu then blocks his attack. I swear this arc just gives ways to fuel the anti-Mihawk agenda, because people clown him for getting blocked by Jozu, right? But then you have fodder yelling, "The world's strongest sword slash was blocked by none other than Jozu, a third commander." Yes, I can agree that does look very foolish on surface level. That does not look good in the eyes of many. And it only takes a bit of thinking to understand that that doesn't really make sense to begin with. For one, Mihawk made a slash intended for a man with a regular human durability, not for a diamond man made out of diamond. As we know, for a swordsman, you only cut what you intend to cut. Cutting diamond isn't an easy feat, and to my other point, if this was the world's strongest slash, do you really believe Jozu can just tank it? I feel like it would have made more sense for these fodders to say a slash from the world's strongest swordsman or maybe this isn't even the right translation. Now we get to another controversial topic. Mihawk is going to attempt to stop Luffy and tells them, sorry red hair, but this power knows no restraint. Once again, just by reading that and seeing how things play out through Marineford with Mihawk, you can come to the conclusion that he's a fraud. It's definitely not the right conclusion to come to, but they do have evidence. Because once again, Oda wanted to drop dialogue insinuating that he was trying. Of course, people choose to take that at face value for the sake of agenda. But again, if we dissect this shit, does it even really make sense? Mihawk's power clearly knows restraint because he didn't kill Zoro in their final clash at the Baratie. He literally restrained himself from killing Zoro. So this power that knows no restraint is getting retconned or contradicted. Unless you think Mihawk can't kill East Blue Zoro. And just saying that in general means like all these basic sword slashes that are getting blocked by fodder and stuff, you're telling me like that's full power Mihawk? The statement also implies that he's using his full strength in every sword swing on no-name, hockeyless, auraless, basic swings with his hands are in his full power. And if you want to believe that, I get it, man, agenda's crazy. But the important part that gives context to the whole Luffy and Mihawk situation is that Mihawk highlights Luffy is a man graced by fate. Fate plays a role in Luffy's journey and the things he's capable of doing. Mihawk seeing this even asks the question, how will fate deal with this heaven-sent boy? Will his life end here or will he escape this black blade? Now with that context, the next chapter is titled Luffy vs Mihawk. Luffy trying to avoid fighting Mihawk ends up running away. Then Mihawk uses his Hawkeyes to pinpoint Luffy and hits him with a slash that sends him flying. This obviously doesn't kill Luffy once again, showcasing that Mihawk's power does indeed have restraint, unless you think that's his full power right there and he couldn't really do anything to Luffy. But anyways, Mihawk tries to stab Luffy, but he dodges. I'm not gonna lie, I don't have anything to say for this. He just managed to dodge him. It looks a little sus. Should Luffy be able to dodge Mihawk? Realistically, no. But hey, maybe he's just dodging killing blows. That's my theory, since fate being at work is a theme, but I won't lie and say that this shit doesn't look kinda suspect. Mihawk then ends up one-shotting a couple of fodder that think they can protect Luffy. Then Luffy ends up attacking Mihawk, but mid-attack he seemingly uses future sight to see that his hands would have got cut off. Mihawk then charges up a sword slash to Luffy, which he barely dodges, and it ends up cutting the iceberg in half. This being done casually is a crazy feat, but apparently this iceberg is actually massive and he just cut it with a casual swing. But of course though, once again, Luffy did dodge that attack. I mean, hey man, my theory was that Luffy only dodges killing blows since fate is at work, right? This was looking like it could really kill someone. But once again, man, this shit does look fraudulent. Like you're really telling me a man who is the strongest here, supposedly, I think he is, and to even casually slice a pre-time skip scrub Luffy? But anyway, we cut back to Mihawk sending multiple slashes that Luffy ends up just dancing around them. Now, there's no way to sugarcoat this. I'm not gonna lie to you. Yes, I've already established you guys that Mihawk shouldn't really actually be trying, even though he kind of said he was. But Mihawk even barely trying should at least not be getting done like this from Luffy. Luffy is putting the moves on Mihawk. Like, is Luffy able to avoid every top tier just because of this so-called fate? Like, I don't know about that, man. The only logical conclusion you could come to is that Mihawk doesn't try, and that fate is on Luffy's side to the utmost degree. But once again, I do agree that it's still kind of weird and questionable as to why he couldn't hit him regardless, and it doesn't help when Oda tries to reinforce that he is trying. And I honestly agree that it makes him look fraudulent, but once again guys, that still shouldn't be the conclusion you come to. After this, we have Buggy taking attacks from Mihawk, once again showing you that his power indeed holds restraint, because he ends up slicing up Buggy again. Now unless we think Buggy is invincible, I'm pretty sure Mihawk can bypass his Nail Fruit somehow, unless we think Buggy is invincible to swordsman. Well, he is to most, but I'm pretty sure a Conqueror's Haki infused slash that's able to engulf Buggy's entire body could put him down, like the giant one he did to Jozu. Like, imagine you put some Conqueror's Haki and Armament Haki in that slash and just throw that Buggy. His entire body should just get cooked because it's engulfed in that slash. Theoretically, obviously, I don't really know that, and for all I know, his body could separate on a microscopic level to avoid the attack. But anyway, that Buggy stuff isn't really that serious anyways. Mihawk ends up chasing after Luffy, who used Buggy as a distraction for Mihawk. Mihawk intends on chasing Luffy, but we see a very famous line used for the anti-Mihawk agenda on a daily basis. Marco says, "Vista, go help him," or "Vista, go stop Mihawk." And Vista proceeds to stop Mihawk and clashes with him. People meme this because it's hard to imagine someone saying this to a man like Whitebeard or Shanks. yo, Vista, go stop Whitebeard. Like, what the, does that even sound right? Mihawk is a guy that gets put into these conversations with characters like Roger. And obviously, I'm not gonna lie to you, there's no way I would hear someone yell, Vista, go stop Roger. Or Vista, go stop Shanks, because that just doesn't sound right and it doesn't feel right. Like, you guys know what I'm talking about. Which once again, like, this is kind of a weird way of portraying Mihawk's strength. Then the famous clash happens. Vista clashes with Mihawk and they exchange some words. Mihawk even admits he's well aware of Vista, the flower blade. This man Vista right here, his legacy changed forever. Vista is somehow being talked about a decade later just on this moment right here. He's forever tied to Mihawk. Now from this point on, I don't remember how their fight goes besides this clash right here and besides how the anime made it look. So I'm curious to see how fraudulent or not fraudulent the manga makes Mihawk look. Alright, there's no fucking way this is why Vista is being used to slander Mihawk. What the actual fuck? The very next chapter is the scene where he says, we should settle this later. Yeah, sure, him not low diffing him and opting into a truce for whatever reason is weird, but these guys didn't even fight. All they did was swing one time and said, let's call it a day. What the fuck did Vista actually do to Mihawk? He got in his way and forced the clash. They then clashed and decided to stop fighting. It literally didn't last more than one panel after they clashed the first time. The very next panel we saw of them was the fight being over. And that was the next chapter. And I know some of you guys want to be like, why is he postponing it? Like, you should just be able to beat him. And honestly, bro, my reasoning for Mihawk not just violating Vista is because he's another famous swordsman. He wants to see how he fights and see his flower fighting style while having a good sword duel. That's also why he wanted to postpone it. Obviously, he doesn't go back and fight him. You could say that's fraudulent. But hey, man, after the short ass clash with Vista, I can't believe people actually come to the conclusion that he can't get past him. Like, if you want to call him a fraud for other things, okay, but this right here, don't even support it the way you guys preach it does. The next time we see Mihawk is him about to attack Luffy, but this time Daz Bones ends up taking the hit for Luffy. Now this isn't really a big deal since he ends up destroying Daz Bones moments after, but then another one of his swings gets stopped by Crocodile's hook. Now this does look bad, right? But why do we ignore that it's just a casual swing of his sword? Like, there's nothing special about this swing. So if Crocodile intercepts it, I'm not thinking too much of it. Maybe the sword is so goated that you guys think it should be able to just cut through his hook. Why is it even clashing? Fair, whatever. But regardless, you guys are acting like he stopped Mihawk Strong's attack or something. But I will agree, what comes after is fucking ridiculous. Crocodile tells Mihawk, watch yourself, I'm not in the mood. Just off that dialogue alone, it's crazy that Crocodile even thinks he could threaten Mihawk. Like, what kind of, like, how do they view this guy? Because once again, it's just kind of giving the vibe that no one really fears or respects this guy's level of strength. Or you could just chalk it up to Crocodile's personality, because he was the same guy who was talking crazy to Whitebeard, so I guess maybe that could just be a him thing. The last thing is obviously him running away from red hair Shanks. This is also one of those things where, like, you gotta read above the surface and just not settle for an agenda's perspective. Remember what I said earlier about everyone perceiving Whitebeard was the strongest man alive when he arrived to Marineford, including Mihawk? So if they tell him prior that you're going to be facing Whitebeard, the world's strongest, why would he not choose to fight Shanks because he's quote unquote scared, when he wasn't scared of a guy who was perceived to be the strongest? Shanks and Mihawk have history. He already chose not to continue their rivalry and refuses to fight him at this current stage, probably out of respect for what they were. And he probably has respect for Shanks to the point where he doesn't feel like he should stand in his way. There's so much possibilities that you could think of with those two, to where there's most definitely a reason why he left and just didn't want to fight Shanks, and it wasn't him being scared, because once again, he was there to fight a man perceived stronger than Shanks. Is Mihawk a fraud? No. Does he look questionable and fraudulent in Marineford? Yes. Do we now then speak as if he's a fraud and like he's not going to be shit at the end of the series? Because at the end of the day, what Oda has done with Mihawk in Marineford isn't going to translate to how he wants to portray him at the end of the series with Zoro. So just keep that in mind. It's not like we can't objectively see what the fuck happened in Marineford, but we just know it's not the end all be all.